Hey guys, Master Studios here, how y'all doing? So in case you guys don't know, part 2 of Crystalized is finally out in English, well, sort of, and so we have Crystalized as a whole now, and so I'm going to give you guys my personal review for the season. Or rather, reviews for the season, because in case this isn't obvious by the title and thumbnail of this video, I am doing a multi-part series in order to review Crystalized, because there's no way I could give you guys all of my thoughts on Crystalized in one video without it being super long. So instead, I'm going to make a multi-part series of videos reviewing Crystalized, then by the end of the whole thing, release a giant mega cut with all my videos put together into one for a massive review of this season. And so we're going to be starting out the whole thing by going over the stuff that I really liked when it came to Crystalized. And so let's get into the whole situation. And in case this is not obvious, spoilers for the entirety of Crystalized. And let's begin. Starting off with the stuff that I did like when it comes to the season, I really liked what they did with the characters during this season, for the most part. When it comes to returning characters, again, for the most part, they are done really well, honestly. It's neat to see the stuff they ended up doing when it came to the ninja during this season, and some of the stories when it came to the ninja. Stuff like Nia having her whole story of her getting her powers back and after everything that happened during Seabound and her being Samurai X, that was really cool. I like the little story that they had going on with Zane and with him and his emotions being turned off, that was something interesting. I think that Andrew Francis did an absolutely amazing job voicing Cole during the season, he was incredible. And I did like some of the stuff they ended up doing with Lloyd during the season, and mainly when it comes to some of the stuff with him and Garmadon. That was definitely very interesting, but there is a bit of an issue that I have with the whole situation, but it's not something specific to Lloyd, and I'll be getting back to that in my negatives for the whole situation. Also, when it comes to Garmadon, I really did like him. I think it was interesting that towards the beginning of Crystalized, he was a lot more like his movie counterpart, and I feel like when it comes to Ninjago, after the movie came out, there are definitely these moments where it seems like stuff from the movie versions of the characters were brought over into the show, actually. With the exception of Garmadon, since he was intentionally made to be less like his movie counterpart in order to show how serious he could end up being. Yet, when it comes to Crystalized, in the beginning, he was a lot more like his movie counterpart. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually really like some of this stuff, and it was pretty funny to see some of the stuff that Garmadon got up to. That was definitely really nice. And when it comes to the returning villains, I absolutely loved them, again, for the most part. Mainly when it comes to the Council of the Crystal King. These guys are absolutely hilarious, and I like the fact that when it comes to the Council, they're made up of returning villains from all across the show. You got Pythor, Asphira, the Skull Sorcerer, Mr. F, the Mechanic, just seriously, it is so great, and the interactions between these characters is absolutely hilarious to see during the show. I was laughing so much when these guys were talking to each other. It was great. I also really liked something that they did with the Overlord, and they didn't make the whole thing with him wanting to just take over Ninjago and conquer it all because he thought there would be peace in the dark as a big part of his character, because I was legitimately worried that was going to be something that they were going to do, but they didn't. They brought it up once, and that was it. And I am honestly really glad they did that. Because honestly, one of my least favorite types of villains when it comes to any form of media is the villain who's all like, by doing something bad and terrible to the world, I will have saved it and made it a better place. And I was worried that they were going to do that with the Overlord, with him thinking that by mind controlling everyone in Ninjago, he would have ended up saving Ninjago and made it a better place, when that obviously wasn't going to be true. So, again, I really like that they didn't do that when it comes to the Overlord. That was cool. And I also like some of the stuff they did with other characters for them coming back. Mainly characters like Ronan and giving him a bit of a larger role when it comes to the season. That was nice. Plus, also bringing in Skylar. That was also something pretty cool. And something that I think was actually kind of funny when it comes to Skylar is that they actually touch on the idea of her and Kai being a couple, actually. And Skylar basically calls out Kai on this and how they aren't actually a couple, and how it was just after years, basically, the two of them not really getting a chance to talk to each other. Right now, the biggest crisis of all in Ninjago, Kai's just now springing on the idea of the two of them getting together. Like, yeah, I can definitely understand where Skylar is coming from. And so, yeah, when it comes to the characters overall, for the most part, I think they were done pretty well. Another thing that I really like when it comes to this season is the comedy. I think that this season is really funny, honestly. It's not Master of the Mountain levels of funny, but it is still a really funny season, and I was laughing a lot throughout the events of the show, which I think was definitely something really, really great actually. Most of that does come from the interactions between the Council of the Crystal King, which is definitely great, but also in some other situations that happened during the show, which I did definitely like a lot. And so yeah, again, the season, it is pretty funny overall. Another thing that I really like when it comes to this season is the animation. I've said it before and I'll say it again, but I think that when it comes to Wild Brain, they have done an absolutely amazing job animating Ninjago ever since they took over the reins of animators since 2019. And just seeing all that on display during Crystalized, it was so great to see, especially for some of the battles they end up doing. I think that these are honestly some of the best looking battles we have ever gotten when it comes to the show. Just seriously, these battles look visually incredible, honestly, and they look so good. Like, I definitely really like this a lot, honestly. Another thing that I really like when it comes to Crystalized is honestly the concept in general. Just this idea of a bunch of the ninja's previous villains returning in order to try and get revenge on them and trying to take over Ninjago, that I think is a really good concept, actually. This is something that was obviously tried during Day of the Departed, and overall it wasn't really that great. But during Crystalized, for the most part, I think it was done pretty well, honestly, when it comes to the concept. And again, I like what they actually did with the villains by having them interact with each other, or have them not getting along that well, which led to some really funny moments. That was definitely great. And finally, one last big thing that I really like when it comes to Crystalized is honestly what they did with Lloyd and Garmadon during this season. I do think it is pretty cool that when it comes to this season, after everything that happens during the events of Season 10 and just seeing where Lloyd and Garmadon are now when it comes to the show, it is interesting to see that when it comes to the two of them, there are still some issues that the two of them need to work out. And I did definitely like that they decided to touch on that a bit during this season, actually. And just seeing the two of them basically work through what was going on when it came to the two of them in a way was definitely kind of nice, actually. Like, not entirely, because there was something that I wish they could have done with that, but I'm going to be getting into that later on when I get into the negatives. And that's pretty much it, honestly, when it comes to the positives that I have when it comes to this season. There's definitely a lot of stuff when it comes to Crystallized that I did like and think was good, and just overall, there's definitely some enjoyable stuff when it comes to this season. As for the negatives, on the other hand, well, that's a different story. And you're just going to have to wait for that in part 2. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So tell me down below, what do you guys think? Tell me, what did you guys like when it comes to Crystallized? Tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.